Alright guys, we're doing another snapshot. This is like my quick take series where I do kind of an off-the-cuff talk about new releases and news and what's going on. The media program, we got the guild plot cards, or guild game plan cards. Got a year later, that's still, almost 2 years later, it's still tripping me up. The media program just got them. I've got a couple games with them, so this isn't like a first reactions really. But I am by no means an expert, and I'm sure we'll look back on this in 6 months and see how incredibly wrong I am about these cards. So they essentially redid the entire game plan deck, and if you know, the game plan deck is an enormously integral part to the game because it's how initiative changes and how the game decides kind of who has tempo or control of the game at the edges of the turns. It decides who goes first and who goes second. Decides they're just a big deal. The first thing I want to get into with this, before we get into the specific cards, is to talk about the fact that the ratios for the cards have changed. So in the first deck, there were 2 copies of Initiative 1, 2, 6, and 7 on the edges. And then there were 3 copies of Initiative 3 and Initiative 5, and then 4 copies of Initiative 4. So we had this like nice tiered system that as you went to the extremes, there were fewer cards and it like evenly moved in. This has been changed slightly. There are now 5 4s, right? And so and only 2 5s, but all the other distributions are the same. So they took one of the 5s and they made it a 4. This puts the average initiative slightly lower in the deck, but not by much. The average of the other deck was literally 4, and now it's like 3.9 and change. I think this makes the 7s and 6s more powerful, and if you get one of like the dominant hands, it's an even bigger deal. I'm not sure how it actually affects what the average hand looks like. I'm hoping that it's better, but I honestly don't know. But I do think it's interesting that they've changed up the distribution of the cards. Alright, so let's get into that. We're going to start with the 7s and go down to the 1s. I recently rewatched my old video, and the main mistake I made when these cards were introduced was that I discounted how important the numbers on the cards were. I was looking primarily at the effects because we were coming from guild plots, and guild plots were only effects. They didn't have anything to do with your initiative roll. The numbers on the cards are almost always more important than the text on the cards. Because if the number is relevant, the number is all that matters, and if the number is irrelevant, the effects largely matter, or you're hoping you have that influence. So big initiative cards are always going to be taken, always going to be good. 7s and 6s are at a premium, as are any kind of plus influence cards, because those are really good when you know you're going second, or you know you're going first, when it's like you're up by 7 momentum or something like that. Alright, so let's start off with the 7s. We have Caught Out of Position and Risky Play. Caught out of Position is a 7 and a -1. Starting with the player that has the initiative phase, both players may choose one enemy model and make a 2-inch dodge with that model. The chosen model is a friendly model during the action. So this card is causing a whole lot of hubbub in our play group, especially if one player is killing the ball. So what we've been using it for is if somebody's killing the ball near the goal line, we dodge them behind the goal line, and now they have to activate the model with the ball, or they have no momentum for the turn until they do so. That is kind of an extreme example. You can also use it. This is like, in many ways, like an enemy seize, but it's much shorter. 2 inches and 4 inches, big deal. I mean, it's twice as far. But also the seize style card in this pack, being a -1 influence, and not personally increasing your goal threat or your threat range really at all, is like a big deal, because it, like, you can move one model closer instead of moving your one model closer to their entire team. For when like your target selection doesn't really matter. So I think it's significantly weaker than C's, but it's really interesting. And I like that they've recognized that out of activation movement comes at a premium, and so they at least put a -1 influence on this card. The thing is, and just like C's, the player that has the initiative goes first, so is in the weaker position, which I still like. Risky Play is incredibly powerful. It's a 7 with no influence cost. You give an opponent's squaddy 1 +1 tack, and the opponent gets to choose which squaddy that is. It can be hard. It's hard to do this in a vacuum. So, like, if you're playing against navigators, this card's very dangerous because +1 tack on the navigators is really strong. Same thing with like the people that wrap their books a lot or have a result that is intentionally just out of reach against most models. Like brewers kind of enjoy Risky Play being played against them, especially if the person doesn't get to go first and they truly risk it. That's cool. Number 6, or moving on to the 6s, we have Play to the Crowd and Pick Up the Pace. Play to the Crowd. Friendly models may spend 1 less momentum to make snapshots. It's an interesting ability. Can allow like goal teams to stay up on momentum if they're going to attempt risky snaps. This is going to be most of the time a blank card, as we saw with like the showboating one. But it's a 6/0. It doesn't have the negative influence on it. The other one is Pick Up the Pace. Starting with the player that has the initiative, both players may choose 1 friendly squaddy model. The chosen model gains +2/+2 move, and it's a 6/0. That's crazy good. This is kind of a more extreme version of Midfield General. I like that it uses the both players do something mechanic. When the cards came out after we had played with them for a while, we kind of wished the plan card that affects both players, that there were like more of them. And it's just good to see new ones in here. I like this card. I think it's really, really good for goal scoring teams and has really, really interesting implications on the standoff. Next up, we have our 2 5s. Again, down from 3 5s. We have Boot Sponsorship. Friendly models may use gliding without spending momentum. 5/0. Free momentum guild cards we found out are just like very strong. The like free Come On Mate card that's just like a 4/0 and gives you like a free heal is really, really good. And this is kind of a lesser version of it. If you are going to need to glide with your first activation, or with some activation during the turn, this is a free momentum. I would play a 5/0 that said gain 1 momentum. Like, that card's awesome. This isn't quite as good as that, but I think it will be taken, especially because its number's high. Mudslide. Choose a piece of rough ground on the pitch. The chosen piece of terrain instead counts as fast ground, and it's a 5/0. Situational. I'm not sure if this works on forests, because forests are forests, but they're also rough, so I'm not really sure as to the ruling of that. I'd have to ask. But I assume the intention is for it not to work on forests, which means this won't always be relevant, but can be kind of a gotcha. Fast ground in the middle of the field is strong, as Skatha's shown us, and the fact that this is one-sided. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not one-sided. The chosen piece of terrain instead counts as fast ground. It's not one-sided, so it also affects your opponent. So, kind of depends on terrain. Situational will still be taken because it's a 5, and there's fewer high cards, so 5s are more premium than they used to be. So now we're moving on to the bulk of it, the 4s. First up, we got Punching Bag. Choose a friendly squad model. The chosen model gains Tough Hide, and it's a +4, -1. So this is an interesting card because Tough Hide is kind of a weird ability. When you first start playing Guild Ball, and for a very long time, I thought this, was that like Tough Hide is just kind of reduces damage, and it's just kind of a defensive mechanic like all other defensive mechanics. but it's not. It's much more like unpredictable movement, where either it matters a ton or it matters not at all. So this can make, depending against certain teams, they can make a model unkillable, and against other teams, it matters not at all. And if you're Brewers, I'm sorry, buddy, this sucks. This card doesn't do anything for you. Like, I guess you can have a Tough Hide Friday. Neato. And again, it's tagged with the squatty things. So you can't put it on like Quaff or your mascot or your captain. The -1 influence is a hefty price, but it's nice to see that its number is still up there. I believe in the last set of cards, there was no 4 -1. I think there was a 7 -1, a 6 -1, and those were all the minuses. So this is the lowest -1. Team can't take great advantage of this. Or if you're playing against a team that either has so much damage it doesn't care about Tough Hide, or it's like a goal-scoring team, you'll leave this at home. But I'm also interested in trying it because like doing things like a Tough Hide Ghast sounds like the most miserable thing in the world. Next up, we have Form a Wall. Friendly models gain goal defense. This is all friendly models on your team gain goal defense, but keep in mind it's a named ability. It does not stack with itself. So if you've got something within 4 inches of the goal, +1 target number, I kind of hate goal defense as a rule. It doesn't ever really... It's just like, it doesn't adjust the math enough usually to make them change what they do. It just makes the dice more swingy. Where, like, it's less likely for them to get the goal, but because goals are so binary that, like, this never feels great. But it's solid, it's a 4. I mean, a blank 4 seems fine. Sidestep. This is one of the wild ones, guys. This is another 4-0. The player that has the initiative may choose 1 to 3 friendly models. Each chosen model may make a 2-inch dodge. Then the other player may choose up to the same number of friendly models. Each chosen model makes a 2-inch dodge. So this is, again, kind of like a Seize, but it's dead in the pack, which I prefer. Like, I still, to this day, think Seize was way too high of an initiative. It's important to note here that not only does the player with the initiative choose the number of models that dodge, but they dodge all their models first, and the other player dodges all their models. So you can kind of lose control of this card, where, like, maybe you're playing it as like a butcher player and you're trying to get in on an alchemist team or something like that, and you're like going to dodge all your models. But then the alchemist player wins the initiative and chooses to go first, and then just picks 1 model, which means you just get to inch up 1 model. But this is, again, a dangerous card and a super skill-intensive card. Like, any out-of-activation movement that you also give your opponent can be super dangerous if not handled correctly. There are so many new vectors here. I think you're going to have some absolutely wild games where people dodge 3 models, and just the board state looks so radically different. The next one, this is, I think, where we're kind of starting to get to cards that are getting close to auto-take, which is interesting because, again, we're low on here. But maybe it's not fair because I didn't mention auto-takes when we were up higher, but you're always going to take, like, if you have a 7 and a 6 delta, you will probably take 1 7 and 1 6. Like, almost always. But then when you get to the lower numbers, your auto picks are going to be more effect-based. Pass Out the Orange Slice is a very good card. Friendly models on the pitch immediately recover 2 hit points. This can wildly change math. It's just good, like, if your whole team is damaged, it's just really good from a momentum value perspective. And again, I think any card that said you start the turn with an extra momentum, I would play that card almost no matter what its initiative value was. Or I would keep that card no matter what its initiative value is. Again, there'll be teams where, like, this isn't that good. Like, if you suspect they're going to play, like, if they have, like, Yukai Shark Fish, like, I don't know how much they're going to fight you. And considering the fact that, like, in the game, the best strategy is generally to, like, kill 1 model and put it down instead of, like, slowly damaging everyone. And then, of course, I have to, like, intermediately complain that we Yet, that again found more tech to hose smoke, where everybody heals too, to kind of undo the poison. The condition as damage thing is already kind of not a thing, especially with how dominant Midas is at the time of this recording. But overall, I think I like the card. Next up, we have Hit 'em Where It Hurts, which is another 4/0. Choose an enemy squaddy model that the chosen model suffers weak point. This is great. This is like a fantastic, almost grudge match-esque type ability, where it's now on a lower card, but it's only one-sided. Giving a model weak point can be really, really helpful. Navigators are going to love this card. Pretty much all teams playing in any kind of armor will love this card. I think this card existing hurts Masons as a team, but not extremely so. It's real good. Next, we're moving into our threes. We've got 3 threes. We have Lock Them Down. This is a 3/0. Choose an enemy squaddy model. The chosen model suffers -1 tag. You know who hates this card? Navigators. Right? Any Tech 4 model hates this card. Like, being able to take a sizable amount of tech off of a model is really strong. Because it's a 3/0, like, if you're up on momentum, you can kind of turn this into, like, pretty big plays where you do something like you're going to kill their best model, and their second best, or their second most relevant model is going to have 1 less tech and be less effective against you. So that's fun. Next, we have Cool Head. This is another 3/0. The first time a friendly model would spend momentum for an action or momentous ability this turn, except for a shot or a snapshot, they do so without spending momentum. This is really good. So this is Brewers with free heroics. This is a free come on mate or a free heal, because both of those are actions. It is important to note that I believe gliding is not an action, because gliding can be done at any time. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I'm pretty sure that you can't use this card with gliding, and then you can't use it with shots or snapshots. This is really good. Like, again, this is about as close to playing a card that's a free momentum as you can get. Cool Head's very good. Next, Aggressive Defense. This is a 3/1. Friendly models gain poised while on the enemy half of the pitch. So this is kind of the opposite, and this will trip people up a bunch. It's already tripped us up, because Hunker Down was +2 dice on a counterattack if you're on your side of the pitch. This is poised on the enemy side of the pitch. So you have to be over there interacting with them or attacking their goal to get this effect. Before, if you remember, the 3/1 was Won't Touch the Hair, which gave 1 model poised, and was really good because it was the highest momentum card that had plus influence on it. I almost always took it if I had it. It was really good. This largely seems like a better version of that card. I like it. Next, we got our 2/2s. Never Say Die, +2/1. Each time a friendly model suffers the taken out condition, the friendly team gains 2 momentum. So this is Dig Deep, but the other way around. But this is huge against teams that kill. If you're a goal-scoring team, you typically struggle with momentum. Being able to essentially threaten to gain a ton of momentum as they're gaining momentum killing your guys is really interesting. Dig Deep, while it didn't trigger as much, was kind of more brutal, because like the way momentum flow works in the game is that when you're a team that kills models, you typically have momentous damage results. So that means killing models makes you momentum. Whereas for goal-scoring teams, scoring goals typically means spending momentum. So you have like these 2 different types of teams. One scores points and gains momentum, and one spends momentum to gain points. Using this to kind of level off the amount of momentum lead they're gaining by killing your models is really good. It can also really help with like a jail at the start where they just like take a momentous takeout and then kind of take control of the game and just like fall back into a last activation type position. This can punish that because they just get 2 momentum for doing that, and you get 2 momentum, and you went second, so you have 3 to their 2. Can kind of give you maybe not enough of an edge to come back in the game, but it's going to make them more difficult to guarantee they stay up on top of you with that standoff. Speaking of standoffs, we have my favorite card in the deck, and what I'm probably going to say is the strongest card in the deck. It's a +2/+1 RawEnthusiasm. Choose a friendly squatty model. The chosen model gains Put Me Back In, Coach. And Put Me Back In, Coach is once per turn when that model's taken out. It may immediately remove the taken out condition and return to the pitch as if it was the maintenance phase, and so they return to their recovery level. That can be insanely good. It's an incredible anti-jailing tool. Like, go in with your squatty, dunk your goal, they hold you hostage across the turn line. Play RawEnthusiasm, you load them up. Hopefully they're a striker that's fast enough to go threaten the ball whenever they kill you. You don't go down on activations. Really, really powerful card. It's still locked to squatty, so you can't like go in for a crazy shark activation. They hold you hostage across the turn line. Then you try to RawEnthusiasm. It doesn't work. The other thing to be careful about with this card is when you put it on a model, make sure you're putting it on a model that is going to be able to come back in and be relevant again. I don't know if just like preventing losing the action or the activation is going to be worthwhile. All right, and we're in the home stretch now. The last 2 cards, Give Me 110%, is a +1/+2 with no ability. I kind of love this card. This card's great. 2 extra influence is a ton from cards. Like if you have a goal, like let's say you're like a Midas team and you kick in your turn 1 goal, and then you play Give Me 110%. I almost called Give Me 110 influence because that's how much influence it feels like you have. Because you're gonna come back that next turn as a 16 influence team. Like that's insane. That's super good. You can also like fully load some ridiculous farmers plays and stuff, or farmers teams. That's going to be crazy. It'll also be crazy in like the hyper efficiency guilds like Vetbor, where he brings 4 but only takes 2, and then now there's like 4 influence floating around that doesn't need to be allocated. Like it's so good. And the last one is Break Out the Knives. It's a +1/+0. Friendly squatty models gain +1 tag. This is a fantastic thing for like support captains. Couldn't be better. Again, navigators, they love tack buffs. This is +1 tack on 4 of your models. Super good. It's really, really good in brewers, which are like a squatty based team. Grange farmers will love this. They're not allowed tack buffs. This is a tack buff for like every one of your models that does work. This card's great. Its stats suck, but its effect is super strong. Alright, so overall, I like the new plot cards, mostly because we've just had the other ones for too long. I think my main criticism of this is that it took them too long to release them. I wish we had this 6 months ago, but we've got it now, and I'm pretty into that. Next year of Guild Ball is going to be really awesome and really wild. I don't think I can understate how big of a change this is. I think this is the largest change they've made this year to the game, because this season released last year. But yeah, these are really great. My other criticism of it is they didn't update the art. I think that's a real missed opportunity, especially because everyone's going to buy one of these. I would have loved to see each card have individual art. I just think it's a missed opportunity. Maybe they should have. Maybe they didn't have to because they knew that every single Guild Ball player is going to have a set of these. So why do they need to update the art? I also think that could have been a fun thing they did where they like put them on Drive-Thru RPG or Drive-Thru Cards or whatever their print-on-demand services, and got a deck on there where every single card had different art, and then the print and play was all the same art. I think that would have been really, really cool and given us a reason to like give them money. Because I think just like the ability to play the card, see the image, and instantly know what the card is would be really advantageous because they all kind of have the same silhouette. With that being said, what do you guys think of the new Guild Plots or game plan cards? God, I'm still not going to get used to that. What do you guys think of the new game plan cards? Do you like them? Which one's your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the bell to know when I upload videos. This has been another Snapshot, and I'm Vincent Curkov.